What's up everyone, Michael here with another topic of video for this day. Today we're going to talk about the Doom open beta, the multiplayer open beta that was out for a while. I don't think they're going to do an open beta for the single player. I hope they do, because I want to see what the single player is. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But game in the background doesn't look like Doom because it isn't Doom, it is actually Borderlands 2. I am playing it because it is a nice contrast to what I have to say about the Doom open beta, which is probably a bad sign. I actually like Borderlands 2. I think it's a superb shooter. Doom open beta, not so much. Going to be out right front and be like, yeah, kind of didn't enjoy the beta very much. I thought it was a very just kind of thrown together game. There's a lot of comments I have about it, but I do want to mention right off the bat, first off, just in case you don't know what Doom is, basically it's a first-person shooter franchise, mostly known for its single player. I don't think I've ever played a Doom multiplayer. And so that's actually the first time, this is the first time I've ever played a Doom with multiplayer. I didn't play Doom 3. I believe that one had multiplayer in it, but not 100% sure. And a lot of people were like, hey, you know, this multiplayer sucks and stuff like that. And I'm actually not going to talk about too much about the multiplayer on its own, because I wasn't expecting multiplayer from Doom at all. I think it's a mostly, you know, single player kind of experience, kind of like Shadowrun or something like that. And it is one of those more classic franchises. My experience with the franchise is obviously the very first ones, all the way back on like DOS and stuff like that. So, you know, that's mostly where my opinions come from for the franchise. But a lot of what I have to say actually isn't going to be about the franchise at all. You know, obviously the open beta also had a bunch of technical issues I'm not really going to get into. Now, for the sake of completion, I'm going to go ahead and throw up some footage right now of the Doom open beta so you can see kind of what it looked like, some of my testing footage. Or it's actually already running. I'm probably going to put it up earlier than that. But I had some actually really bad input lag, and my game didn't perform very well, which is actually why I'm not playing it in the background right now. Like, I think the open beta is up for another few hours while I'm recording this, but I'm not really enjoying it because, for one, I have other things to say about it, but mostly the performance is absolutely terrible, and I have to play with like almost a half a second of input lag, which makes playing the game almost impossible on any sort of competitive level. Doesn't mean it's not fun to play every once in a while, but still. Now, so let's go into, you know, kind of my impressions of it. So, right off the bat, you get into the menus and stuff like that, and it's alright. It doesn't have any graphics options right now because it's open beta. I'm not really going to hammer it on that, which is also why my performance is terrible. So I couldn't actually, like, drop the settings. I could luckily turn off motion blur, which was, oh my god, abhorrently terrible. So, yeah, if you ever play the game, make sure to turn off motion blur right away, especially if your frame rates are going to be lower. The game seems a little bit demanding on some systems, but other people seem to be running it perfectly fine. But once again, I'm not going to talk too much about performance. Now, the gameplay. Let's go ahead and go right into the gameplay. Now, it was a multiplayer beta, and so it didn't have any of the single-player stuff, which I'm looking forward to the game for single-player. Back when Doom 3 came out, I didn't really have, or really, I had enough first-person shooters to play. I had enough first-person, you know, single player and multiplayer, and it was a very popular genre back then. But nowadays, I really don't play much. Like, I'm playing Borderlands 2 in the background right now because this is literally like the latest shooter I've played that's a single player experience, and this is hardly a single player experience. It's meant to be played in co-op. But like, I do play some competitive ones. Like, I played Ghost in the Shell First Assault. You can actually check out my review for that. But, you know, like, nowadays, they're kind of shimming off. I'm not really into Battlefield or Call of Duty anymore like that, and so, like, yeah, I kind of looked forward to another shooter, and Doom kind of looked to be, you know, maybe that was going to be my new single-player game. I was actually looking quite forward to it. This beta, on the other hand, has actually had me kind of questioning it. Now, the multiplayer modes were pretty generic. It was team deathmatch and some capture mode, and really there wasn't anything. Oh yeah, I don't remember how to use boost on here. I was having a problem earlier trying to figure out the boost button for the cars in Borderlands 2. Sorry if the footage is still up, but yeah, whatever. Anyways, back on topic. The multiplayer modes were obviously generic. It's just kind of like, yeah, we're testing stuff and whatever. But my main complaint with the game actually comes with its personality. And that's going to sound strange for what I'm saying. And this is where Borderlands 2 kind of comes into this. Is the gameplay didn't feel very good to play. As in, it felt really floaty and not in a good way. Now, I understand Doom 1 and 2. I don't know how Doom 3 was, but I understand Doom 1 and 2 were obviously floaty just because of the hardware of the time. And I actually liked that floaty type of gameplay. If you watch my Bunker Punks review that I have up on the channel, that game is very much inspired by those types of games way back in the day, and it feels great. It feels amazing to play, and they introduced some other things that are kind of like more modern and stuff like that. They made the game really feel weighted. This new Doom game, has a very interesting contrast where the visuals are more grounded. They went for a much more realistic look, and it kind of reminds me of a mixture between like Halo in a hellscape sort of thing. Like it's very much sci-fi, but at the same time you're still in that sort of darker hellscape sort of thing. They went a little bit more industrial in this time, and so you're not really going through like torn up cities and stuff like that as much, but overall it still kind of has that aesthetic to it. And so that's kind of my impressions on the aesthetic too. I don't really personally like it, but the contrast comes into play when you actually go into the gameplay aspect of it. Now, when you're walking around and stuff like that, it actually feels fairly grounded, and it feels like, oh yeah, this is what the visuals would kind of represent. But once you start shooting, everything feels so lightweight. It feels weird, and it's not very pleasing to play. Like, a lot of shooters, like, this is where Borderlands comes in, is Borderlands feels great to play, and that's actually one of my hugest compliments of the game. I mean, love it or hate it, you know, you got to admit that the gunplay, it has a nice weight to it, and it has a very good feel, and it has a certain personality, and I like that personality. I'm not just talking about like the story and the characters and things like that. I'm just talking about the way it plays. You know, Borderlands has a very specific way that things are kind of expected. Sure, they have guns. It's like, oh yeah, this gun shoots rockets. But the thing is, the recoil and the way bullets travel and the physics and everything like that, they have a personality to them to where it's like you can expect what's going to happen. Even if you pick up a rifle that's going to shoot rockets, you know how those rockets are going to interact. I don't feel like Doom has that. Everything kind of feels like bullets are coming out, but I don't really feel like bullets are shooting. The only way that I know I'm using bullets, and this is a great example, is like I was shooting a gun. I didn't even know if the bullets were coming out because the visual is glitched and the little bullets on the plasma rifle disappeared. The only way I knew I was actually shooting bullets was that the ammo counter was going down. That was literally it. Like, and it doesn't feel good to play. And shooting people doesn't feel satisfying. Getting kills isn't satisfying. Things just kind of, they feel too floaty for me. And I mean, maybe that's just a choice of the developers, and maybe they wanted that, but I feel like the contrast with the visuals and the kind of movement style, because the movement style feels a lot more grounded. And so maybe this is something they're going to fix. Maybe they meant for the gameplay to feel grounded, but they just couldn't yet because they aren't in that point in development, which I hope they are, because the game is supposed to come out, you know, within the next year, I believe. And so hopefully they get this figured out quick. But overall, the gameplay just, in general, didn't feel right. It felt very disconnected, and it didn't really have a personality. You know, back in the day, all those Doom games were very kind of floaty. Everything had a personality to it. You knew what to expect when things were going at you. And you knew exactly how a gun was going to, like, you picked up a gun and you knew it was going to shoot. You picked up that shotgun, you're like, all right, this shotgun's going to be like a powerful rifle. When you picked up that rifle thing, you know, you knew how that was going to interact, and you knew that, you know, things were going to either recoil or not and stuff like that. It's just like, it had a consistency, and it had a certain personality in the way that it played. It felt like, you know, that old school 90s shooter. This new Doom is kind of stuck in a place to where I feel like it's trying to be a little bit classic, as in, like, there's no reloading or anything like that. So it's got some classic elements in it, which I actually like that. It keeps combat going quite quickly, and it's got ammo packs and health packs and stuff like that, which I appreciate that they didn't go for, like, oh, your health regens and stuff like that. I do appreciate that, because that does seem to be a trend in all games, and it's nice to see a game not do that, because it does create this tension of, I need to go find ammo packs, or not ammo packs, but armor packs, you know, to build up my armor before I go into combat, or like I'm in a death, like life for death situation, I'm able to pull off a headshot right as I grab some health packs that I would have died otherwise. And it's just like, it creates this tension of knowing the map and stuff like that. So they do have an emphasis on the map, and I will say the map design was interesting. I wasn't a fan. They had two maps. They had an industrial map, and they had this kind of shrine map that I wasn't necessarily a fan of the industrial map, but I did like the shrine map. And I feel like they actually went towards that good map design, sort of interesting style, which I appreciate quite a bit. But the overall gameplay didn't feel right. Like, it just didn't feel good to play. And the multiplayer modes didn't help at that at all. Now, in the multiplayer modes, they did have an interesting thing to where people could get possessed, and then they get to play as this demon. Now, I think there are supposed to be multiple demons in the final release, but right now they only had one, and it was like the Reaver or whatever, and he ran around, and he has rockets on his back and stuff like that. Now, he was a badass, but at the same time, when you're playing as him or against him, it's super just, the rockets don't feel like rockets, and the bullets don't feel like bullets. Plasma bullets don't feel like plasma bullets. It's just, everything didn't feel like anything, and it just felt like it's in this position to where it's trying to get that old style of floaty combat going, but at the same time, they're trying to be more realistic and more grounded and more modern. And I feel like they have to choose one or the other, and they can't do both of them at the same time. because then you're going to run into a situation to where you get this disconnect that I'm talking about, and it really made the game, I won't say it made it unenjoyable, but the gameplay was just very meh, and it didn't feel like it was revolutionary or anything like that either. Like, Doom back in the day defined, like, it helped to define an entire genre, and it felt very much of its time, and that time period doesn't really get games in its genre very often. And so it has this unique feel and it has this personality. But this new Doom game just feels like they threw things into Unreal Engine and called it a Doom game and that was it. Like, it's not great. And that's kind of my overall feeling to it. And I feel like what they need to do is they need to look back at the game, and I hope the single player fixes that, because it is very much a case of this could just be the multiplayer. The entire multiplayer mode that I played, it felt like that tacked on type of multiplayer you'd get in the, you know, early 2000s, to where it's like, oh, we're BioShock, but we need a multiplayer mode for some reason, and every publisher thought they had a new multiplayer mode, and that's how it feels. And so I'm hoping that's just a case of this is just a multiplayer, and the single player ends up being amazing, because that's what I'm looking for. I always saw Doom as kind of a single player game. Obviously, I'd love for a new Quake game to come out or something like that. Like, I haven't played Quake in years, and I should go back and play one of those. I should try the new Unreal Tournament too, because I heard that's pretty good and stuff like that. Oh, it's still in development and kind of expensive to get maps and stuff like that, but still, like, Doom is very meh. Like, the multiplayer beta was very meh, and it has me kind of scared, because if that weapon feel carries over to the single player, I feel like I'm going to run into the same problems, and it could be just me. Maybe I don't appreciate those, you know, type of mechanics more, or maybe I'm just not seeing the personality because it's not in single player, and maybe the multiplayer just kind of shreds apart that personality. So maybe the gunplay is fine, and once you get into a single player environment, it works as expected. But as right now, I don't think I'll ever touch the multiplayer in that game, because I have plenty of multiplayer shooters to play if I want to play them. And yeah, that one just doesn't feel great. So a little disappointing, to be honest. I do look forward to it coming out and seeing how the single player is. Obviously, I'm not pre-ordering it, and I do not recommend anyone to pre-order it. It is a AAA game with unexpected results, and the multiplayer beta is not really that great. And the visuals were okay, but not necessarily great. And the game really didn't do anything revolutionary either, which is kind of unfortunate. Like, the Doom series, I feel like back in the day, it was very revolutionary, and it did a lot of things different. And it, like I said, it just had its personality, and this one just doesn't, and I'm really scared that it's not going to be good. And a lot of people are probably saying it probably won't be good, and you know what? It honestly probably won't. A lot of shooters these days just fail to transition into the modern era, when really all they need to do is go look back at what they did in the 90s, redo it with better graphics and a little bit more grounded gameplay, and introduce other mechanics. Like, I'm going to refer back to the Bunker Punks review that I did not too long ago, and if you want to watch that, make sure to go check it out and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's a few mechanics that they could introduce, like gun recoil, screen shake, and, you know, just a more grounded gameplay. And that stuff made a huge difference on that 90s inspired gameplay, and it made it feel amazing. Like, Bunker Punks is one of the best classic style shooters that I've played in a long time, and it feels amazing to play. I wish the level design was better and stuff like that. I have complaints about that game. It's not perfect, and it's definitely not done. It's in early access, but it shows what those types of games can do. And I feel like Doom could have been that older style shooter with, you know, revolutionary graphics, which would have been really, really cool, because that floaty type of gameplay doesn't happen that way. Like, they just don't have it. So yeah, I'm disappointed, and I know quite a few other people are as well. And, you know, I'm gonna wait and see how the single player is before I give a final verdict on the game. Obviously, this is open beta. You know, multiplayer could change as well. I really don't see Doom as a multiplayer game, so I'm not really too disappointed in that aspect of it. Like, if the multiplayer sucks but the single player is great, that's fine with me. I'm not really looking for a multiplayer shooter anyways. Like, I'm looking for good single player experiences. I need to pick up the Wolfenstein game too. That's one that I heard was extremely good, and I still haven't picked it up for some reason. I'm a maniac. I keep buying other games and stuff like that. I'm into my JRPGs, man. I need those games. Anyways, this has been Michael with another topic video talking about the Doom open beta. Yeah, was not a fan of it. But anyways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one. Make sure to check out my Impressions review series as well. And there's also another series in the working right now. I have two series actually in the working right now that are going to replace my plans for the design view. The design view series isn't going to happen for a while, but I do have two other series that are coming out, which is going to be pretty awesome. And leave in the comments what your opinions of the open beta are if you got to try it. And if you didn't, you know, if you've looked up other opinions and stuff like that, make sure to throw them my way. I've avoided other critics' views on it. I did check the Steam forums just to actually you know, check out some of the performance issues that I was having and stuff like that, because I wanted to try to fix it before giving my impressions, and everyone's just kind of like, either the game works good or it just trashes everything. So very mixed bag. That's just beta stuff, and I'm not gonna, you know, obviously I'm not gonna hate on the game for that. It's in a beta state and I didn't pay money for it, so hey, why am I gonna complain too much? Obviously if it was a free-to-play game, I'd beat the hell out of it for it, but yeah, it's not a free-to-play game. It's gonna be a $60 purchase, I believe. But yeah, give me your opinions on it, and you know, what's your opinion on if they should go towards that old style shooter, because I feel like that's really where the game could shine, because not a lot of them come out, and I feel like if they did that whole, you know, this is a 90s shooters with, you know, modern graphics, I feel like they could do a lot with that, and maybe they introduce some good story elements and stuff like that, because the 90s game really didn't have story on it. Not that that's what the games were about, but it didn't really. But yeah, anyways, that's been me for this video. Thanks for watching, as always, and really excited to see where that goes to. And there's a few other games I'm really excited for this year. This is a good year so far, and hopefully Doom ends up being one of those good games, but I'm really scared that it won't be. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And I am going to go find a midget and shoot it in the face with my rifle, because this is Borderlands 2. And it's a pretty good shooter. Like it or not, I love it. It's got great shooting. You know, you shoot, it feels like you shot bullets. Doom doesn't have that yet. Fix that, Bethesda. Don't screw your series up.